Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Okay, great. So today we're going to be kicking off our class session for the Ruby Learning Center on Rebuilding Rails written by Noah Gibbs. And we're going to be taking a look at Chapter 0 and Chapter 1. If you do have any questions while we're going through this, feel free to put those either in the Twitch chats or over in Discord on the stage. Raise your hand. Amy and Julie here will be watching out for things for additional questions, and we'll be figuring this out as we go. Okay, so that said, let's take a look at some of the code. Okay, so I have the book off screen just to be respectful to Noah, so we're not sharing too much of that. So for the entire getting set up stage, it's going through installing Ruby, getting a text editor, command line, terminal, get, bundler, and a few other things. If you are having trouble with those, feel free to jump into the Chapter 1 Q&A, and we'll get you some help with environment setup. But what we're primarily going to be focusing on today is probably going to be Chapter 1. So that said, we'll go over to rulers over here. So I pre-generated this, but what we're starting with is bundle gem rulers. And how bundle gem works is it creates a new gem with some niceties like a gem file, your versioning, some of the testing support, codes of conduct, and various other things. So this is a mostly clean version of it. Some things that I'll change will be, I'll put work in progress for the summary and description because I don't feel like filling that out yet. But if you try and bundle install when it still has to do, it'll fail. So do make sure to put anything in here that doesn't say to do. The other thing is I'll probably change this URL later whenever I upload it to Get, but for now, we'll leave it be. I also put the Ruby version up to greater than 3.0 and changed the home page, the source code, and then the changelog, which I'll have to remember to update those sometime. And then we also took out the allowed push source, which you might have seen right below this line because we won't be needing that. It is useful if you have an internal gem server so you're not pushing it accidentally out to public or something. Okay. So we have that. We'll go ahead and copy the descriptions from the book. Nope, too much. There we go. We can save those. So it has a couple of example dependencies, but the one that it mentions that you need is the runtime dependency on rack. So we'll go ahead and add that. So one thing you might notice is that rack does have a 3-point version currently released, but we're going to use 2 since the book builds on that, and I haven't had a chance to vet against rack 3. So let's play it safe for now. And the book does note that this is a runtime dependency. So the difference between a runtime and a development dependency is that runtime is needed to actually run this library, whereas development might be things like, say, test libraries or utilities for developing against this, which should not ship with this. And then if we go into library over here, into version, Noah does mention a fondness for 001. I'd agree with that. You might also notice that I have an auto formatter in the background here that's correcting a few things.
Hey, Brandon.
Yep.
We're not able to see what you're working on.
Oh, are you not?
I see the README on the right and a terminal on the left, but nothing is being typed in.
let me take a look at this real quick. Hmm. Why is that not updating? Well, that's fun. Is that just being a static image? Okay, we will edit it live real quick. Okay, does that show updated for you all?
Yes, we can see stuff now.
That is trippy. Okay, well, thanks for the call out. We got that fixed. Stuff happens. Yeah, if you happen to see anything like that, absolutely put it in the Twitch chat or anywhere else. I can't quite watch the Rebuilding Rails channel on Discord, so if you type it in Twitch, I'll be able to see it. For whatever reason, the screen decided to pause. Okay. So just going back over, where did I put my mouse? There it is. Okay. So just going back over some of the stuff I've mentioned before. A lot of times you'll have spec homepage over here. This is probably going to change because I'll probably put it under, say, rebuilding Rails / rulers, just so we have both these under the same folder, because you have the gem and then you have the actual usage of the gem. So I'll probably figure that out and post that up to GitHub later. But I tend to use spec.homepage because you can reference these for the homepage URL, the source code URI, and the changelog. I just interpolate changelog.md afterwards, which is useful. Okay, so back to runtime versus development dependencies down here. You'll notice this is a runtime dependency. So runtime dependency, necessary to run the application. Development dependency, necessary for developing the application. Things like, say, RSpec or other tools like that, development dependency. Things like rack, necessary to run it, runtime dependency. Okay, so we have that. We have the version. And just because that didn't come through last time, I don't remember which extension this was, but if I save things, Rubocop or something will be autocorrecting the background. Okay. And then we get on to gem build that gem spec. Oh, right. And before I forget the .git ignore here. A lot of times I end up adding this, which is I probably don't want get to know about the actual gems. Then we can install that. Okay. So let's go ahead and go down a directory. I wonder if I still have that shortcut. Oh, good, I do. Okay, so mkcd is make a directory, cd into it. It's a quick git alias. Okay. So we'll go ahead and cd into that. And if you ever see me clear my terminal, I tend to use Control L a lot, just to make sure it's a little bit clearer. Okay, so it also wants us to make config and then app. So we have both of those. So I have the entire Ruby Learning Center directory in here. Okay, so we have best quotes gem file. So we'll go ahead and put this in. Okay, I think I know why someone might have had a problem earlier with Rails. So gem rulers, if I had to bet, has some sort of live version to it that Noah pushed up, which does depend on Rails. So in that case, what we'll want to do, I'll go ahead and put this over here real quick. So we're going to want to look at Ruby gems, rulers. Okay, so someone did get that gem name. So we have that. Let's see here. Let's look for a bundle file. No. Aha, it was path. I can never remember if it's file name or path or what have you. Okay. /rulers. Okay. Yeah, so that's something that's not in there, is this bit about path. So it has you do a bundle install without that, so I would be careful of those. Does he mention don't run bundle install? Okay. So page 14, bundle install, it's saying don't bundle install because it'll pull down everything. In this case, it's on page, let's see here. Yeah. So we're on page 19 right now, where we have the best quotes gem file. If you copy it directly, this path bit's not on there. Okay. So we could technically put it in there locally. The reason that I'd prefer to use path on there is because if we do use that, it'll install from the directory instead. Okay. So someone was asking about where does the call method come from. Rack has a run method, which you can see here on line 2. So what that's doing is it's looking for an object to the right of it, because this is essentially just a method call, and it gets back this proc. Now, this could be literally anything as long as it responds to call, which is why whenever we pass the application, it'll take a look for call on there. It'll hit the inheritance and it'll get there, but we're getting a little bit headed. Okay. So then it mentions we'll go ahead and run rackup on there. And P is port 3001. Okay, let's see what I did. Best quotes, config.ru. Hmm. Okay, well, let's take a look for that then. Did I miss something in the gem file? Nope. Let's try that.
Brandon, I ran into this as well. And I think WebRick was removed from
Oh,
standard Ruby
right.
in 3,
Ruby
so
3.
we have
Yes.
to specify web server.
Good call. Good call. Okay, good. Discord audio is going through as well. Okay, so Amy had an excellent point there, which is Ruby 3 removed WebRick from defaults, I believe, and that means we have to manually specify something there. Okay, so that works. Let's see if this will work with Puma. Okay, so we got that. Okay, so we have hello world. Let's make it a little bit bigger just so we can see it. And then just to prove that we have something else here, we can say hello world 2, refresh this page. Okay. And the reason that doesn't change unless we restart the server is because this code right here is loaded and has no way to dynamically do anything on that. Okay. I might just go ahead and put some of the book in here. Okay. So we'll go ahead and take rulers over here. Rulers lib rulers. Okay. So we don't need the rest of this. Got that. Okay. Let's get myself something else. See if that works directly as expected. Best quotes config application. Okay. And then for the configuration, and this is what someone was asking about earlier, was how exactly this hits call. So remembering that this is essentially just a method call, the run method is getting hold of this object and it's looking for a call method. And that call method, if it starts looking, it's going to find it on ruler's application call. Let's see here. I mean, we could probably check the receiver if we really wanted to on that, but we don't need that for now. Okay, so let's save that. Make sure we have that installed and run the server. Okay. So this gets us back to that result there. Okay, that gets us through some of the review for chapter 1, but there are some exercises. But before I get too much into that, does anyone have questions about what we have so far, or have I missed anything over in Discord? Okay, would folks like me to go to the exercises then? One thing I do like doing for this is pulling this out just so we have a name for that. Let's put that there. And just as an experiment. Okay, so that does work. So as far as the dot call, let's go ahead and take this from rulers. Haha, we could even do some Ruby 3 pattern matching if we really wanted to. Status code, response type, and body. So we don't want to change status code or response type. But let's say that. Let's see if I broke anything. If it makes you all feel better, I frequently forget what super does and how it works. And also, I typo things. Whoopsie. Response body must return to each. Oh, right. It's an array. Aha, okay. So for those who aren't familiar with pattern matching, just because it's fun, yes, call is part of rack. So rack is looking for something it can call on. So config RU here, run takes an object that responds to call. So I'll add that as a comment here. Okay, so we have that. Just for the sake of interest, let's see here. Ruby get caller, name of calling method. There's probably a nicer way to do this. Remember, there's some type of nice method which allowed me to do this. Aha. So you'll see over here on the left, we have the entire call stack of what happened. What was that receiver method? Okay, so do that. Switch back over to Chrome and anyway, doesn't matter. There is a way to get that. I'll try and add that later. But effectively what it would say is rack is calling us. Okay, so back over to the book. So it does go over on Rails and say about all the little gems that it has, active support, model, record, all those things. I'll skip over that section for now. But a lot of what this book is going to be covering are how those are built, how they work, and kind of going into some detail on that. So we can add that in for debugger. Make sure it picks it up. Okay, I think I saw that file get created. So that just puts literal debug into there. So I think I might have skipped ahead a little bit with the path thing, but it is nice to know. Yep, yep. I'm gonna show some of the book, but not too much of it. Just because otherwise you're kind of guessing where I'm at. So one thing Rails does a lot is it adds various extensions, helpers, and other things to it. Deeply empty, if we actually wanted to do that, it's a little bit more complicated. Where was that put? Array. So if we actually wanted to do that, it would be recursive a little bit. That one's a little bit more complicated because you'd also probably want hash. But anyway, we'll leave that alone. Okay, we'll pull this back over here for now, just because we're going through some of the exercises. Okay. Right, okay, so Amy mentioned caller 0 for specifically which file and line it's being called from. So let's go ahead and do that over in application. Maybe rulers. Oops, 2 up, not 1 up. So now we want to go over to Chrome, refresh that. Okay, so it gets called from there. One thing I've never gotten used to VS Code is that I can't do # have that surround that in interpolation. Yep, so this is in the rulers application, except I added something which goes above it, so the reason for the difference there is that if I go back over to application, I have a wrapper right here, which I'm using. So technically it's getting called from the wrapper instead of from that. So now we'll see 2 of those. The first is that rack is calling it. The second is that best quotes application is calling that. So if that wasn't the case, then yes, you would be correct that it would tell you immediately that it comes from rack. But because we did this, we end up getting that instead. Okay. So we'll go ahead and add rack test and mini test in there into ruler's gem spec. Okay. Go cd into rulers. Bundle install there. Okay, and then we're going to want rulers, test helper. So it was generated with spec, so technically we should use that. But we'll follow along with the book. Why is that? Okay. I am not sure why my formatter is doing that, but it crops off an entire segment there. Well, that's problematic. Okay, anyway. We'll go ahead and get application tests going. I remember there's someone who's having a bit of trouble over here, so we'll see what we get. So this would be application test. Copy and paste from PDFs, never copies over the indentation, unfortunately. And let's double check that that's working as expected. Okay. Rulers application. Okay. So we got that, we got rulers, we got application. We have rulers required. Okay, well, I guess let's take it off and see what happens. Weird. Okay. So it knows something I don't. Okay, so that works as expected. Okay. Okay, so that brings us through exercise 3. Exercise 4 is going through other application servers, and if you remember, we did end up using Puma instead. So I think we technically got through that already. Oh, yep, I think that got through most of it. Okay, so do we have any other questions about anything from Twitch or for Discord over there? I'm pretty sure that Ruler's Gem that someone else published has a bunch of active support or something like that. Something weird's going on there. Okay, so get and editing the parent folder. Do you care to expand on that, Gustavo? Rulers does not have a commit checked out. Yeah, it's probably that the parent folder is annoyed about. Yeah, okay. So it's probably rm rf get. Okay. Okay, so let's just add that. So we have a chapter 1. Yeah. The problem with sub-git directories is they're a little bit touchy. Touchy. Let's go touchy. Okay. Best Rex is wondering, going over how Gem, Ruby app, Rack, and Puma are communicating. Okay. So right now we have a couple of different things going on. We have best quotes, if I can spell today. Change this to Markdown real quick. So we have best quotes, rulers, rack. Let's see what other people have to say on that. Okay. So Puma is kind of the foundation. No. So the way I would describe Rack is kind of like a DSL or a minimal library for writing servers. If you want to do anything more advanced over that, WebBrick is typically the default Puma, Unicorn, all of the what was it back in the day? Mongrel and a few others that build on top of that to give you more features like multiple workers, parallelism, spawning, forking, processing, all that type of stuff. Rack is basically strip all that out, get down to the very minimal of what you actually need to have a Ruby server, and very, very Spartan, relatively speaking. Puma adds niceties on top of it for actually running things. So what's happening right now is Best Quotes uses our Rulers framework. And Rulers, you can say, is a stand-in for Rails. So this is effectively our Rails, Sinatra, whatever else you want to say. Best Quotes built on top of that. And then Rulers directly interfaces with Rack to use a lot of its lower level DSLs. Puma serves the application. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it so I'm not getting into it. So I'll probably come back to that one whenever I have a little bit more information. I don't want to give you a bad answer that I can't really comprehensively answer on the spot. But effectively, all the communication is happening through Rack getting hold of our Best Quotes application running on top of that. Do we have any other questions on there? If not, you might notice this little pattern matching thing was a bit exotic. So what that's doing is this is right word assignment. So it's pulling the status code out of there, giving it a name. It's pulling response type out. And this is the interesting one. It has a nested array in there. And it's saying the first element, whatever's in the body, pull that out. And then we're giving it back a new array, which looks like that. So it's more of a nicety, and pattern matching is especially useful for some of these nested types and structures. So responses from Rack or things like ASTs or stuff like that, you'll find pattern matching is really useful. The thing to remember, though, about the right word assignment is that if this is ever broken, it's going to be very mad about that. Like if I were to say something like string and then it should assign it to that, it's going to crash. Oh, right, I'm in that directory. So it'll say no matching pattern there because it found an integer. Yep, so pattern matching was recently added in Ruby 2.7 and was more formalized in Ruby 3.0 and had some more features added in 3.1. So this is the one-liner syntax, which I've gotten a lot of use out of. And I can also share some articles about that sometime later if you want more information on how that's working, why that's working, anything else like that. Personally, I like it. It's been very useful, but it's also a little bit of a learning curve. But if you're working with a lot of nested structures, especially hashes, it's very, very useful. Okay, do we have any other questions? Anyone want to explore anything on this? If not, we can go ahead and call that a day. And if you do have any other questions, feel free to pop into the Discord channel. You can find that for anyone watching afterwards on rubylearning.dev. And there's a link to our Discord on there. And you can ask any questions in the Rebuilding Rails forum on the Chapter 1 Q&A, and we can try and get you sorted on there. And if you do need any type of help, absolutely feel free to reach out and we'll figure something out. But past that, thanks so much for coming out, and we will go ahead and call that good for the day. Thanks and have a great day.